welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'm going to be talking about Christian history again because it has been heavily requested. Potentially the most heavily requested history video I've ever received is to cover the historicity of Mormonism. So this video, I'm going to aim to talk about the Protestant Reformation, the Great Awakening and the Second Great Awakening in the US, and then just explain how various sects, inclusive of Mormonism, came to be, and then sort of look at a secular view of the historicity of Mormonism. I hope that makes sense. Cramming a lot into one video, to be completely frank. If any of that sounds like something that you would like to watch, continue watching. Cue the music. Shout out to my amazing sponsor, myself. If you could like and subscribe this video, that would really help. If you really want to support the channel here on TikTok and on Instagram, please pop over to my Patreon. We're a great time, to be completely honest. All right, so we all know about the Catholic Church, okay? Do we? Anyway, the Catholic Church was the dominant Christian sect for pretty much, well, all the way up until from like 300 BC, no, 380. Okay, let's begin today with Catholics. Catholicism became the official religion under Emperor Constantine, and that was around 300 CE. And then the Catholic Church began to essentially rule and dominate Christianity once it became legal. Because before this, in the Roman Empire, being a Christian was illegal and you could very much be killed for it. So Constantine, the emperor, changed the Roman polytheistic religion over to a monotheistic religion, being Catholicism. Now, in 1521, Martin Luther, a German teacher and monk, brought about the Protestant Reformation. Now, this is a huge part of history in Europe and a great source of confusion when it comes to understanding the history of Christianity and how we got to where we are today. So for approximately 1200 odd years, Catholicism was Christianity, and really they were the authority in the Christian realm. Now, the Protestant Reformation was a religious reform that basically swept through Europe in the 1500s, and it resulted in another branch of Christianity for the first time called Protestantism. Now, that name is like a collective noun to refer to many different groups that separated from the Roman Catholic Church in this period. The Protestant Reformation began in Germany on October 31st in 1517, when Martin Luther published a document called the Disputation on the Power of Indulgences, or also known as the 95 Theses. Now, this document was essentially 95 ideas about Christianity that he invited people to debate with him. And it was so controversial to the point of like death for a lot of people, because it directly contradicted the Catholic Church teachings in 95 ways, essentially. Luther's entire movement basically challenged that the Catholic Church's role in the intermediary between people and God, specifically when it came to the indulgence system, which was a system in which people had to pay for a certificate for a pardon of sins, so they would pay for repentance, essentially. He didn't like that, so he thought that that was dumb. Fair enough. And basically his objections to that indulgent system gave way for other challenges to Catholic rhetoric or doctrine, if you will. So people started popping up everywhere, such as John Calvin in France, Huldrych Zwingli in Switzerland. They proposed ideas about practices of Holy Communion, about the whole idea of like, why are babies getting baptized? Like, they're innocent. Shouldn't we be getting baptized as adults, etc., etc. The thing about Catholicism was that divorce was a no-no. So when Henry VIII came in 1534, he was mad at the Pope because the Pope would not let him divorce his wife, his multitude of wives. So he decided to create the Church of England, which was another part of like the hybrid Protestantism. And that for the next 20 years was like turbulent. Queen Mary reinstated Catholicism in England while persecuting, killing and exiling Protestants. And then Queen Elizabeth I in her parliament attempted to lead the country back towards Protestantism. Anyway, it was a friggin' mess. Confusing mess really is the theme of the rest of this video. Places around Europe and England and whatever would like declare their alliance to the Catholic Pope, and then the Protestant, it's like, it was just like this ever-flowing shit fight, to be frank. And around like 1600s-ish, a lot of people started a new life in Holland, in the Netherlands, but then that failed. Anyway, essentially, the diversity of religious thought has now become this identity in history. We're still talking about history. So essentially, when the United States broke away from the Commonwealth and its Bill of Rights forbids establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. 400 years in the making. This personal empowerment and independence in religious matters, with its roots in Protestant Reformation, has become this enduring part of the American mindset. So that's kind of the European background of how things went, right? But then we come to about 1730, when America was, you know, unmaking themselves a colony from Britain, and people were like, wow, we can believe whatever the hell we want without being killed, without being imprisoned. And this phenomenon was known as the Great Awakening. Basically, these religious sects would pop up. Then came the Second Great Awakening, which was around 1795 to around 1835. Now, during this revival, meetings were held all over the states that were small towns, large cities, and throughout the country, people started creating doctrine that they wanted to align with. Now, the largest sects that sort of arose at this point in time was the Methodist and the Baptist churches. Now, a lot of these reforms were rooted in the ministry and moral philanthropic anyway, reforms, including emancipation of women, generally considered less emotional than the First Great Awakening. Anyway, essentially numerous colleges and seminaries and churches essentially popped up around the country. There are sort of phases within this, I don't know, 15-year period where things were heated, then not so much, and blah, 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 blah. But the point is that in this time period, denominations were created, theology was chopped up. There were so many churches founded, like so many. Actually, I don't know how many actually made it through to today. That's a very good question. No official directory, but there was an estimate of 12,000? Is that correct? Canadian church in the US has 75 oh my goodness. Anyway, I don't know if I have an answer for that. But basically, we've got the Catholics and we've got the Protestants. The Protestants have all these extra sects. And yeah, Methodicism, the Shakers, the Quakers, and the Mormons came out of this period. So, what is Mormonism? Mormonism is a almost 200, no, just over 200-year-old religion that came out of this period. So there was a lot of people claiming to have direct communication with God, starting up these religions. A lot of them flopped. A lot of them you probably never heard the name of. And a lot of them died out within years of their founding. One that has survived, however, is Mormonism. Before I get into the concrete history of Mormonism, I'd like to read this quote by President J. Reuben Clark. "If we have the truth, it cannot be harmed by investigation. If we have not the truth, it ought to be harmed." That sounded like a threat. It wasn't. It wasn't. Okay, so during this fervent time of religious escapades, there was a man known as Joseph Smith Jr. He was born in Vermont on December 23rd, 1805, and when he was 14 years of age, he claimed that he had received a vision from God and Jesus, and it told him not to join any of the Christian denominational churches at the time, and instead he should form a new religion, a correct religion in his terminology. Now, 3 years later, Smith claimed that an angel named Moroni appeared to him, that Moroni revealed to him that he had been selected by God to translate the Book of Mormon, which was a sacred text that was written around the 4th century, named after Moroni's father, Mormon. Now, according to this story, Moroni, in this spiritual book, contained information about an ancient people, namely ancient Native American people who inhabited the Americas, and that he revealed the book was inscribed on golden plates in Palmyra, New York, which was close to where Joseph Smith lived. Now, the plates were not revealed to him at this point. Smith said he was not allowed to retrieve them for 4 years, and when he did retrieve them, he began a translation process. Now, let's just quickly pause and talk about some historical inconsistencies up until this point. So, Smith was said to recite stories in his earlier childhood of the characters that then were a part of the Book of Mormon. So within the book, we sort of come to the first, I guess, historical misunderstandings. So in the 1769 King James Version of the New Testament and the Old Testament, in which the Mormon faith adapts, they also as well as these two books, have the Book of Mormon and Doctrine and Covenants, which is a historicity of Joseph Smith's experience, and then the Pearl of Great Price, which is another translation onto further artifacts such as Egyptian Book of the Dead artifacts. So in the Book of Mormon, there are King James passages such as Isaiah 9:1 that contain errors of that translation. There are also errors in the Malachi verses that in the Book of Mormon are in 3rd Nephi 24:10, which show that, and there are plenty, like there's like Matthew, a lot of verses from Matthew that I kind of like copied and pasted, but they contain errors that the King James Version translation didn't get right. Next thing about the Book of Mormon that is pretty interesting is the anachronisms. So an anachronism is a misplaced item or whatever it might be in a historical text that it would not have been accurate in that point of history. So when historians are trying to see if an artifact is real or like genuine or fake, they will look for anachronisms. Typically speaking, if an artifact has one anachronism, it will be marked as invalid. Now, in the Book of Mormon, there are a lot of anachronisms: horses, cattle, oxen, sheep, swine, goats, elephants, wheels, chariots, wheat, silk, steel, and iron that did not exist in pre-Columbian America. So those things are mentioned in the Book of Mormon being available in, 2200 BCE up to 421 CE. Furthermore, there is no archaeological evidence to directly support the Book of Mormon or the Nephi and the Lamanites, the two main populaces of the narrative that were supposed to have numbered into the millions. This is the reason why unofficial apologists have developed the limited geography model. Anyway, basically there's issues with the fact that there is no evidence, no DNA supporting the fact that Native American peoples and South American peoples have any DNA connected to Israeli individuals that were said to, in the Book of Mormon, come from Israel over the ocean and to live in the Americas. There is proven DNA evidence that there is no grounds for that. DNA evidence, archaeological counter evidence, and yeah, obviously scholarly issues as well. So anyway, this church pushed forward the Book of Mormon, which seemingly as a history focused point of view was of Smith's invention, which, like, if we're looking at it like just an average book, great story, but the improbability, not just due to the lack of linguistic or archaeological or DNA evidence, but several theories of the text's originality have emerged. There's no solid evidence, and to believe it requires leaps of speculation. The wider academic community for many years have steered clear of this debate, leaving serious inquiry into the Book of Mormon to a small group of scholars and enthusiasts, primarily funded by Brigham Young University, which is owned by the church. So with that, like Grant Hardy, who wrote Understanding the Book of Mormon, A Reader's Guide, have attempted to move the discussion away from the polemics to the appreciation for the book's narrative complexity as a literary, you know, storyline rather than a spiritual holy book. Regardless of all these factors, the church pioneered over to the other side of America. So it started over in obviously New York. There were a lot of issues with Smith being involved with underage women. He was tarred and feathered for being involved with a 16-year-old girl by her father and brothers, etc. And then he was eventually murdered for a lot of these practices, namely polygamy, which is the marrying of multiple women. And there was a 14 and a 16-year-old girls involved in this, and that was then interpreted as martyrdom by the Mormon faith, and then Brigham Young took over the prophetship from Joseph, migrated the population over to the other side of the states, to Utah, Salt Lake City, where the church has sort of thrived out of there for that point, up until this point. So there is a lot to it. The pioneer journey in general was a lot. The amount of wives that Brigham Young took were insane numbers, and the church survived up until this modern day, where from New York Times private releases, the church is worth about $100 billion at this point. So that is sort of an overview of the history. I don't know if this is really interesting to people, but there are pages, and like I could probably give a 200-page essay on the inaccuracies of Mormon translation, of the inaccuracies of the actions of church leaders, of just the Kinderhook plates, the priesthood restoration and withholding priesthood from the black people, the black community, temples and Freemasonry, scientific proof that there's no substantial proof. It's a really in-depth thing. I'm happy to talk on it if you guys want that. It just might be a multi-part series. Personally, I was raised as a Mormon, but I am a very logical person. I enjoy history, I enjoy archaeology, and kind of finding that there's really no base archaeologically or historically speaking for these claims, I found it very hard to continue my participation in something that is very clearly not accurate. So anyway, that is my sort of crash course on Protestantism, the Great Awakening 1, Great Awakening 2, and how Mormonism came out of that. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, comment below. I am happy to do some more videos on this. Just let me know what exactly you would like. Thanks for watching.